They say life is made up of moments. Tiny little moments that feel like nothing at first. Like the way someone looks at you just a second too long. Or how their fingers brush yours when you're passing the salt. Small things, harmless things, until they're not. I used to think I was a good woman, a loyal wife, a mother who knew her place. But now I'm not so sure. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing special, nothing dramatic. Just me in the kitchen making dinner while the kids argued over cartoons in the next room. The same routine, the same silence from my husband. He'd been quiet for months, maybe years if I'm honest. His body came home every night, but his heart, that was somewhere else. Maybe with work. Maybe with someone. I never asked. I was too scared of the answer. And then Marcus came, my brother-in-law, my husband's younger brother. He'd always been around, always had that playful charm. You know the type, makes you laugh when you're not supposed to, remembers your favorite snack without asking. He noticed things. He noticed me. The chipped nail polish I hadn't had time to fix. The way I always touched my wedding ring when I was nervous. He noticed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I remember that day so clearly. The light from the window hit the table just right. The hum of the fridge was the only sound between us, and then he said it. Just one sentence. One stupid, quiet, dangerous sentence. I have a wish. Just one. And I hope you'll say yes. That's it. That's all he said. And my whole world tilted. I laughed. I shook my head. I even told him he was crazy. But my heart? It didn't laugh. It thudded. Hard, loud, like it was trying to drown out everything else. I should have said no. I should have told him to leave, told him it was wrong, but I didn't. And now? Now I lie awake at night wondering when everything changed. Was it the moment he spoke? Or the moment I didn't walk away? Because since that day, nothing is the same. Not in my home. Not in my heart. Not in my marriage. Some people say temptation comes in like a storm. But mine? It came gently, soft like a breeze, until it became a wind I couldn't stand against. And the worst part? Sometimes when I think about it, I'm not even sure if I regret it, or if I just regret getting caught in the feeling. If you've ever found yourself standing at the edge of a line you never thought you'd cross, if you've ever craved connection so badly that you reached for it in the wrong place, then maybe, just maybe, you'll understand. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where secrets unravel and every story leaves its mark. I'm in my early 30s. I've been married for 7 years. We have 2 kids, both under 10. They're the center of my world. And for the longest time, I thought that was enough. My husband's name is David. He's not a bad man. He's just somewhere else. Always busy. Always tired. His job demands long hours, constant travel. He says it's for us, for the future. But what about now? When he's home, he's here, but not really. He eats in silence, scrolls through his phone, answers in half sentences. Sometimes I speak just to fill the air. Just to hear my own voice. To feel like I still exist. But even then, it's like talking to a wall. Our dinners used to be filled with laughter. Now, it's the soft clink of forks on plates, the sound of juice being poured, and the occasional, pass the salt. That's it. No eye contact, no warmth, just 2 adults coexisting like quiet strangers, raising kids in the same house. Even the car rides feel heavier these days, just engine noise and radio static. I remember once I asked him how his day went. He said, fine. That was the whole conversation. At some point, I stopped asking, stopped trying. I told myself, this is what marriage looks like after a while. The butterflies die, and you settle into survival mode. But deep down, I missed feeling chosen. I missed being noticed. That's when Marcus started showing up more often. David's younger brother, recently divorced, he said he needed the company, that being alone in his apartment was driving him crazy, so he'd stop by to check on us, bring little gifts for the kids, fix leaky taps, or hang new shelves. Little things that David never had time for. Marcus was different, not just charming, but present. He listened when I talked, remembered small things I said in passing. He'd crack jokes when I looked tired. Once, he made dinner while I rested on the couch, just so I could have a moment to myself. At first, I thought nothing of it. He was family, helping out, filling the spaces David no longer had time to fill. But slowly, those spaces started to feel like doors, and I didn't even realize I was opening them. Marcus made me laugh when I'd forgotten how to. He'd notice when I changed my hair or wore a new dress. He'd compliment me in ways that were subtle but sincere, and I started looking forward to his visits more than I should have. The kids adored him. He was playful, hands-on, warm. The kind of energy I used to pray David would bring home again. But he never did. One night, Marcus stayed late. The kids were asleep. We were sitting on the porch, just talking. The air was cool, the sky was quiet, and I told him, without even meaning to, that I felt invisible. He didn't say much. He just looked at me with this softness I hadn't felt in years. Not pity, just understanding. That look stayed with me. It was the kind of look that said, I see you. I've always seen you. And I didn't realize how much I needed to be seen until that moment. David never noticed when I cried in the shower, or when I stayed up late folding laundry with tears in my eyes. But Marcus did. He saw me in ways David had stopped seeing me, and slowly, that quiet acknowledgement started to feel like something more. Something dangerous, something I didn't have a name for yet, but I could feel it growing in the spaces between the silences. And I think, even then, I knew I was already too close to the edge. It was a Thursday. David had left that morning for a business trip. One of those 3-day conferences in another city that didn't really need his presence, but he insisted on attending. He barely said goodbye, just kissed the kids on their heads, gave me a distracted, I'll call you tonight, and walked out the door. I watched his car disappear down the street, and all I felt was relief. Isn't that strange? Not sadness, not longing, just relief, like I could finally breathe again in my own home. That afternoon, the curtain rod in the hallway fell. The screws had been loose for weeks. David kept saying he'd fix it, but never did. I'd stopped reminding him, stopped asking. So I texted Marcus, just a simple, any chance you could help me with something around the house? He showed up less than an hour later, toolbox in hand, smile easy and familiar. He made a joke about how I was always breaking things when David wasn't around. I laughed. Too hard, maybe, but it felt good. He fixed the rod quickly, but he didn't leave. Instead, he asked if I had any tea. I said yes, and we sat at the kitchen table. Like we had so many times before, but this time felt different. The light coming through the window was soft and golden. The house was unusually quiet. No cartoons blaring, no footsteps running down the hall. Just us. We talked about silly things at first. TV shows, old childhood memories, but then he asked me if I was happy. I hesitated, sipped my tea slowly, and said, I don't know. He didn't press, just nodded like he already knew the answer. And then, as he stood to leave, he turned to me, his hand still resting on the back of the chair, his eyes fixed on mine. You know, he said with this almost shy smile, I've always wondered what it'd be like if we had met first. I froze. My heart did something strange, like it skipped but landed heavier. I smiled nervously out of habit, laughed it off because I didn't know what else to do. But his eyes? They didn't laugh. They stayed on me. Soft, steady, and far too honest. He left after that. No hug. No goodbye that lingered too long. Just a quiet door closing behind him. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, David's side of the mattress cold and untouched, replaying those words over and over again, if we had met first. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like it wasn't a joke. Like it wasn't a passing thought. Like he meant it. And worse, a part of me wished we had. I started imagining things I shouldn't have. Conversations we never had. Moments that didn't exist. At least not yet. I told myself it was just curiosity. Just loneliness. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Not because Marcus said something forbidden, but because I didn't want to forget it. Because I held on to it like a secret I wasn't ready to confess. Even to myself. That was the night I stopped looking at him the same way. And maybe that was the night I stopped looking at myself the same way too. I tried to shake it off, tried to forget what he said, tried to tell myself it was just an awkward moment, just Marcus being Marcus. But the truth? I replayed it over and over, like a song stuck in my head that I didn't ask to hear. Every time I stood in the kitchen, I'd remember the way he looked at me. Every time the hallway curtain swayed, I'd think of his hands fixing it. His voice, his smile, that damn sentence, if we had met first. I started questioning myself. Was I lonely, or was I craving danger? Was I missing love, or just missing being seen? It's hard to explain how you can live with someone, sleep next to someone, and still feel completely alone. David wasn't cruel, he wasn't abusive, but there was nothing left between us but responsibility. Bills, school runs, groceries, schedules. Our anniversary passed a few weeks before. Years. He forgot. Didn't even realize until I reminded him the next day. He said, "Oh, sorry. Been swamped lately." That was it. No card, no hug, no effort. Sometimes I'd stand in the mirror before bed and stare at my reflection, like I was trying to see what he didn't, what he used to. He used to trace the freckles on my shoulder with his fingers. He used to call me beautiful when I'd roll out of bed with messy hair. Now he barely looked at me at all. And Marcus noticed everything. I started dressing differently. Not dramatically. Just a little more thought, a little more color. Lip gloss. Even on days I had nowhere to go. I told myself it was for me, that I was just trying to feel good again. But deep down, I knew when I did it. When Marcus was coming by, he'd compliment me. Nothing over the top, just simple, quiet things. Like, "That color suits you," or "You look rested today." Rested. I hadn't felt rested in years. But when he said it, I believed it for a second. I caught myself waiting for his visits, finding excuses to call him over, asking him to help with things I could have easily done myself. A picture frame, a light bulb, a jammed drawer. Each moment felt harmless. But not really. Because I'd feel that flutter in my stomach when I heard his car pull up, and the silence in the house when he left felt heavier than it should have. I told myself it was nothing. Just tea, just conversation, just Marcus. But in the back of my mind, something was shifting, something I didn't want to admit. And every night I'd lie in bed with David sleeping beside me, thinking about the way Marcus looked at me across the kitchen table. The way his eyes lingered, the way he saw right through the parts of me I thought had gone invisible. And the guilt? It crept in quietly, like a whisper I couldn't silence. I still hadn't done anything wrong. Not technically, not physically, but emotionally. I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And the worst part? I didn't want to leave. It was just a cup of tea, until it wasn't. After that night, the night he said what he said, something changed. Not in the world, not in the house, not in anything anyone else could see, but in me and in him. Marcus started coming over more. Not in any obvious way, not all at once, just gradually, naturally, like it made sense. He'd say he was in the neighborhood, or that he wanted to drop off something for the kids, or check if the shelves he installed were still holding up. But I knew. We both did. It wasn't about the shelves, or the kids, or the neighborhood. It was about something we weren't naming yet. Something neither of us dared to touch, but couldn't stop circling. He started helping more. Bath time with the kids. Story time. He had this way of slipping in and filling the cracks David had left behind, and the kids adored him. They'd beg him to stay for dinner, to read just one more bedtime story. And when the house finally went quiet, he'd linger. We'd sit on the couch and watch movies. Not romantic ones, just familiar, comforting things. But even then, his shoulder would brush mine. His laugh would linger in my ear longer than it should have. And I felt myself leaning in. Not physically, emotionally. Every evening started to feel like a test. I wasn't sure I wanted to pass. Then there was that night. The storm rolled in fast. Thunder in the distance, then heavy rain pounding the windows. The lights flickered and went out. The kids squealed and laughed. I lit a few candles. Marcus helped me carry them around the house. Once the kids were tucked in and the thunder softened, we found ourselves sitting on the living room floor. Blankets, tea, a couple of flickering candles between us. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. It was warm, comfortable, too comfortable. We talked about everything and nothing. The kind of talking that feels effortless, like you've known someone in another life. I told him about a dream I once had, of running away, not from anything, just towards something freer. He didn't laugh. He just nodded and said, "I get that." Then there was this pause, the kind that stretches just a second longer than it should. He reached over and brushed something from my cheek, a crumb, a piece of lint, or maybe nothing at all. But his fingers lingered, and I let them. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. And he looked at me like he wanted to say something, but was holding it back. My phone buzzed on the couch. I didn't need to check. I knew it was David. I ignored it. That buzz felt like a warning bell, like something holy had been disturbed. But I stayed in that moment, frozen, longing, terrified of what I wanted, and more terrified of losing the feeling. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch again. But we didn't need to. Everything between us had already shifted. And just before he stood to leave, he looked at me in that same soft, careful way and said, "I still have that wish, you know." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't need to, because I already knew. That night he made a wish that split my world in two. It happened 3 days after the storm. The air still carried that damp heaviness, like the sky hadn't quite recovered. Neither had I. David was away again. Another urgent meeting. Another hotel room somewhere that wasn't home. The kids were at my sister's for the night. It was supposed to be a break, a moment to breathe. But instead I found myself lighting candles again. Not for power this time, but maybe for courage, or maybe for something I couldn't name. Marcus came by to return a set of keys I didn't remember giving him. He stood in the doorway, like he didn't know if he should come in. But I moved aside, and he stepped in like he belonged there. We didn't speak at first, just sat. The room was quiet, but something about the silence felt thick, alive, like it was listening. I poured wine. He barely touched his, and then, out of nowhere, his voice low, almost like he was afraid of it. For just one night, pretend we're the ones married. Everything inside me stopped. Breath, thought, time. I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't smiling, he wasn't playing, he meant it. My heart pounded in my ears. The room suddenly felt too small, like the walls were closing in around me. I wanted to say no. I did. But I didn't. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at the man I wasn't supposed to want, but did. And before I could speak, he crossed the room, slow, careful, like he was giving me time to stop him. But I didn't move, not even an inch. His hand reached up, cupped the side of my face. Warm, steady, too tender for what we were about to do. Then he kissed me, and I let him. It wasn't a soft kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was full of everything we hadn't said. Every silent dinner, every lonely night, every look that lingered too long. It was pain and comfort tangled together. It was wrong, but it felt like home. His breath trembled. Mine stopped. I didn't know where I ended, and he began. In that moment, there was no David, no guilt, no rules, just skin and heat, and years of longing finally finding a voice. and when it was over, when the air settled and the silence came back. I couldn't look at him, I couldn't look at myself. That night rewrote everything, and nothing would ever feel whole again. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because the next twist changes everything. The morning after, I couldn't look him in the eye. I couldn't even look at myself. I told Marcus I wasn't feeling well, said I needed time. He didn't argue. He just nodded and left. No hug, no promise. No, we'll talk soon. Just the sound of the door clicking shut behind him. And suddenly, the house felt colder than it had in months. When David came back from his trip, everything looked the same. The furniture in its place. The kids excited to see him. Dinner on the stove. But something had shifted, and I could feel it pressing against my ribs. He hugged me tight. Longer than usual. And for a second, I wanted to disappear into it. I wanted to feel forgiven for something he didn't even know had happened. But I couldn't relax, because I knew, and the knowing had made a stranger of me. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal. Tried to laugh at his tired jokes, tried to respond with warmth, tried to touch him without flinching inside. But the effort wore me down. David started to notice. He didn't say much at first, just stared a little longer than usual. Asked if everything was okay. I lied. Said I was just tired. He nodded like he wanted to believe me. Maybe he did. Then came Sunday dinner. The one where Marcus showed up. He was invited, like always. Family tradition. David was happy to see him. The kids ran into his arms. But when our eyes met across the table, everything in me locked up. He didn't smile, didn't greet me, didn't even sit next to me like he usually did. He sat across from me. Fork in his left hand, eyes on his plate. Like I was just another person in the room. Like what happened between us had never happened at all. And that hurt more than anything else. I kept my head down. Faked a few smiles. Laughed at the right moments. But my hands were shaking under the table, and every time his eyes flicked in my direction, I felt like I was being burned alive. After dinner, everyone sat in the living room watching TV. I excused myself, said I needed to shower. I locked the bathroom door, turned on the water, and collapsed against the tile. The sound of the water masked the sound of my sobs. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest. Shaking, I gave in to something I didn't understand, and now I can't undo it. I thought I was lonely. I thought I needed comfort, but I hadn't realized the weight of betrayal until I tried to carry it in silence. The water turned cold. I didn't move. I sat there, letting it pour over me, like it could somehow wash away what I had done, but it couldn't. Because what I broke wasn't something I could see. It was inside me, and it was already cracked beyond repair. I used to think I knew what kind of woman I was. Faithful. Patient. Good. I wore those labels like armor, until they didn't fit anymore. Now I just feel hollow. Like someone cracked me open, and all the good parts spilled out. I think about my marriage more now than I ever did before. About all the little ways we drifted, the things we didn't say, the touches we stopped reaching for. I tell myself I tried, and maybe I did. But maybe I stopped too soon. Maybe he did too. There's a quiet kind of pain that comes from being invisible, from feeling like someone you once meant everything to now sees right through you. And I let that pain become something else. I let it pull me into something I never imagined I'd be capable of. I replay that night in my mind constantly. The way he looked at me. The way I didn't stop him. The way it all felt like relief and destruction at the same time. I thought for a moment that maybe we'd talk about it. That Marcus would come back. That we'd make sense of it together. But when I finally gathered the courage to text him, when I asked if we could meet and talk, he replied with one sentence. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have let it happen. He said he was seeing someone new. Someone uncomplicated. Someone single. And just like that, he was gone. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement of what he left me holding. He moved on, but I stayed behind, alone with the guilt, the shame, the silence. Some days I wonder if I imagined the whole thing, if I made it bigger than it was, if I assigned meaning to a moment he already forgot. But then I'll walk past the hallway where he once stood, or I'll find a shirt in the laundry that still smells like the cologne he wore that night, and I know I didn't imagine it. Some nights, I still smell his cologne in my sheets. Some mornings, I wake hoping it was all a dream. It wasn't. I am both the villain and the victim in a story I never meant to write, and now I carry the ending alone. Was I wrong for saying yes to a wish I never thought I'd grant? Or was I just a woman starving for affection and finally fed the only way she knew how? Because the truth is, I don't even know anymore. I don't know where the line between love and loneliness blurs. I don't know how long a heart can go untouched before it starts reaching for warmth in the wrong places. I know what I did. I know it hurt people. I know it changed me. But I also know what it feels like to be unseen, to be good and beautiful and forgotten, to cry quietly so the kids don't hear, to smile through 1,000 little heartbreaks, to ache for something simple, just to be noticed, just to be chosen. If you've ever been torn between loyalty and loneliness, if you've ever sat in the dark wondering how you ended up so far from the woman you used to be, then I want to hear your story. Leave a comment. Let's talk. Not as judge and jury, but as people. As human beings who have all made choices we don't know how to carry, and if this story touched something deep in you, if it made you feel less alone or made you question the things we keep hidden, then subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because here, we don't hide the hard parts. We bring them into the light, one story at a time. Sometimes it's not betrayal that breaks us. It's the silence that comes after. The look in the mirror that you can't quite meet. The nights you lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if you ruined everything. Or just exposed what was already broken. And the haunting truth is, love, when starved, can make you do things you swore you never would. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started fading. You never truly know the depth of someone's hunger until they taste something forbidden.